Hotel credit cards are not something that I've covered in a ton of detail on my channel yet. So naturally, today I wanted to make the most in-depth guide I can on all of the best hotel credit cards out there. Is that overkill? Maybe so, but I've kept y'all waiting on this one for too long, so I wanted to go ahead and just give you all the information that you ever wanted and hopefully more. If you'd like me to cover some of these cards in more detail in, dedicated videos, go ahead and leave those in a comment down below. And while you're down there, it would mean a ton to me if you would just check if you're subscribed to the channel. That way you don't miss those videos when they do come out. I noticed recently that literally only 24% of my audience is actually subscribed to the channel. And that means that 3 in 4 people that watch my videos consistently just haven't clicked that button. So why don't you go ahead and do it? Now that you've gone ahead and done that, let me explain exactly how this video is going to be broken down. In part 1, I'm going to be talking about the premium hotel credit cards. Part 2 will be all about the mid-tier hotel credit cards. Part 3 is going to be the no annual fee hotel credit cards. And then part number 4 is going to be the business hotel credit cards. In total, I'll be covering 17 different credit cards in this video, which you can find links for down below as always if you want to help support the channel. And while I can't go fully in depth on each one of these cards, we get pretty deep with it. And I'll be covering the annual fee, the welcome offer, the point valuation, the earning categories, and the additional perks that come with each one of these credit cards, along with my thoughts on the cards sprinkled in along the way. Without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into part 1, the premium hotel cards. I thought it's only natural to start with the talk of the town lately, that being the Hilton Aspire. For starters, the annual fee on this card is $550 now, which is updated from $450 even just a couple of weeks ago. But as we'll see in a second, I think this card is still very much worth it, but that's just my personal opinion. Currently, the welcome offer on this card is for 180,000 Hilton Honors points after spending $6,000 in the first 6 months of having the card, but this is a limited time offer because they just made all these changes to the personal Hilton cards. As for the point valuation of Hilton Honors points, you're generally going to see online that they are valued at 0.5 cents per point, but then you'll also see people like Ask Sebi out there talking about how he targets at least 0.8 cents per point for his Hilton points. And you might also see people like my buddy Luke's Points and Miles, who is able to get more than 1 cent per point for his Hilton points for certain redemptions, of course. So your mileage is going to vary, but I would probably put your estimation at about 0.8 cents per point, and that should be your good target. The earning categories on this card are going to be 14x back on Hilton hotels and resorts, 7x on select travel, including flights booked directly through airlines or through Amex Travel, and car rentals, 7x at US restaurants, and 3x on all other purchases. Do remember though that while these earning categories look super high, you need to taper them back by about 20 to 50% probably, depending on how much you actually value Hilton points. As for additional perks, this card is going to give you Hilton Honors Diamond status, an annual free night award that can basically be used at any Hilton property in the world, a new credit of $400 for Hilton resorts, $200 worth of flight credits, a $189 clear credit, a $100 Hilton on property credit, and even more. As I kind of mentioned previously, despite the changes that were recently made to this card, I would say that it's still undoubtedly the most valuable hotel credit card on the market. And further than that, it's honestly one of the most valuable travel credit cards on the market, not just hotel cards. And it's one that I definitely plan on adding in the future. And honestly, I'm more excited to do it now than I was before they made these changes. Next up is the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant credit card. The annual fee on this card is a whopping $650. Its welcome offer right now is to get 2 85,000 point free night awards after spending $6,000 on the card in 6 months. A lot of times you'll see offers out there for like 150,000 or 200,000 Marriott points instead of this one. Of course, it just all depends on when you're applying. The point valuation of Marriott points is usually about 0.8 cents per point, but just like Hilton cards, you can always find more or less value than that. So that's just an average valuation, but I'd say it's a decently safe bet. The earning categories on this card are going to be 6x back at Marriott. And with this card, that is actually technically up to 21x because of the status that this card gives you and just for being a Marriott Bonvoy member, but technically this card only gives you an additional 6x. It also gives you 3x back on worldwide restaurants, 3x on flights, and 2x on all other purchases. The main additional perks that come on this card are going to be Marriott Bonvoy Platinum Elite status, which comes with a ton of its own benefits, an 85,000 point annual free night award, up to $300 in dining credits, a $100 property credit, a Priority Pass Select membership, and much more. My opinion on this card is that if you are somebody that's looking for the highest status with Marriott possible, at least coming from a credit card, then this one is the way to go. You just need to make sure that you can justify that $650 annual fee, because at that high of a number, the Platinum card is only $45 more than that a year. And the Platinum already gives you Gold Elite status with Marriott, so you kind of just have to weigh the pros and cons there. Since we covered the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant card, the next card we need to cover is the Ritz Carlton card. The annual fee on this card is $200 less than the Brilliant, that being $450. But the welcome offer on this card is actually non-existent because the only way you can get this card is by product changing to it. Of course, for the point valuation, the exact same as the Brilliant, we'll say 0.8 cents per point, but your mileage may vary. The earning categories on this one are pretty similar to the Brilliant. It's going to give you 6x back at Marriott properties, and this one is technically up to 18.5x rather than 21x because you only get Gold Elite status with the Ritz Carlton card instead of Platinum Elite status with the Brilliant. It also gives you 3x back on dining, rental cars, and airlines, and 2x on everything else. As for the additional perks, like I just mentioned, the first one is going to be that it gives you Marriott Gold Elite status. So that's the same as the Platinum card and lower than the Brilliant, once again. It also gives you an 85,000 point free night award, up to $300 in airline incidental fee credits, a Priority Pass Select membership, and even more, of course. Like I said earlier, the only way that you can actually get this card is by product changing to it, but you can only do so with a lower tier Marriott card with Chase, like the Marriott Bonvoy Boundless. You also have to have that card open for a year, and it has to have a minimum $10,000 credit limit on it, but then you can call up Chase and product change to the Ritz Carlton card. I honestly think this card is kind of in a sweet spot for those that don't already have the Platinum card, because maybe you still need that minimum Gold Elite status with Marriott, which this card will give you, and it also gives you that higher tier free night without having to spend $650 on the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant credit card. That's already part one done. We're moving straight into part two now, which are the mid-tier hotel cards. The first one that I have to cover here is another Hilton credit card, that being the Hilton Surpass card. The new and updated annual fee on this card, based on the Hilton refreshes I just talked about with the Aspire, is $150. The current welcome offer on it is going to be for 170,000 Hilton Honors bonus points after spending $3,000 in 6 months. Again, this is a limited time offer though. For the point valuation, as I said earlier, I would probably target to get at least 0.8 cents per point, but you're going to be reading 0.5 cents per point a lot online. The earning categories on this card are going to be 12x back on Hilton hotels and resorts, 6x at US restaurants, 6x on US supermarkets, 6x on US gas stations, 4x on US online purchases, and 3x on everything else. The additional perks on this card are going to include Hilton Honors Gold status, a new $200 Hilton credit split across quarters, and much more. With the recent big shifts that happened with this card, it now no longer offers any kind of Priority Pass access like it used to, and it also got an increase to the annual fee. But I think that the new Hilton credits that it comes with actually makes it a better card than before for somebody like myself at least. And if you're anything like me, the reason for that is because we get Priority Pass on like every other travel card out there. So to have Hilton specific credits rather than more Priority Pass access is a win in my book. Mid-tier hotel card number 2 is the Marriott Bonvoy Boundless credit card. Before I dive into the details here, I do want to mention that there are a couple of other mid-tier Marriott credit cards, those being the Bountiful and the Bevy cards. Right off the bat, I just want to say that I would outright avoid these cards because they really aren't that great and have an even heftier annual fee than these mid-tier ones we're talking about. But before y'all left a comment about those, I just wanted to let y'all know that they're not in this because they're not exactly ones that I would recommend. The annual fee for the Boundless card though is $95. The welcome offer right now is for 3 free night awards valued up to 50,000 points each after spending $3,000 in the first 3 months of having it. The point valuation of Marriott points once again is about 0.8 cents per point. The earning categories on this card are 6x back at Marriott. That is technically up to 17x back with the status that comes with this card, and for being a Marriott Bonvoy member once again. You get 3x back on the first $6,000 spent at grocery stores, gas stations, and dining, and then 2x back on everything else. The additional perks that come with this card, going back to the status once again, this card just gives you Marriott Bonvoy Silver Elite status, but it also gives you a 35,000 point free night award every single year just for renewing the card. That is after your first card member anniversary that you get that, so you won't get that in the first year. Just keep that in mind. But of course, it gives you more than that too. For those of y'all that watch the channel regularly, you know that I recently added this card to my setup. One, because I wanted to start experiencing more Marriott properties and I needed Marriott points in order to do so. And more importantly is because it gives me the ability in a year to product change to the Ritz Carlton credit card if I do decide to do so. But even if you're not somebody that's going for the Ritz Carlton credit card, I think that this card is an easy keeper every single year because of that free night certificate. A 35,000 point free night is going to give you more value than the $95 annual fee every single year. So as long as you're traveling with Marriott's enough to justify that, I think it's an easy keeper card. Next up, we have the very famous World of Hyatt credit card. The annual fee on this card, once again, is just $95. And the welcome offer on this one's a little bit different, but the first part of it is that you can earn 30,000 points after spending $3,000 on purchases in the first 3 months of having it. And then you can get an additional 30,000 bonus points by earning 2 bonus points total per dollar spent in the first 6 months from account opening on purchases that normally earn 1 bonus point, and that's on up to $15,000 spent. So if you actually think about it, you're not getting an extra 30,000 points, you're really only getting an extra 15,000 points from that extra $15,000 worth of spend. Is that worth it to you? I don't know. But the fact that they worded as a bonus 30,000 points is not fully accurate. The point valuation of Hyatt points are going to be the highest that we see today, that being 1.7 cents per point based on the points guys valuations. So make sure to keep that in mind when we're going through the rest of these numbers here, because that does actually increase the value you're getting from these earning categories and stuff rather than decreasing it. Speaking of earning categories, it's going to give you 4x back at Hyatt. Technically it's 9x back for being a World of Hyatt member, but this card is only going to give you an additional 4x back. It gives you 2x back on local transit and commuting, 2x on dining, 2x on flights booked directly with airlines, 2x on fitness club and gym memberships, and 1x on everything else. As for additional perks on this card, it comes with a couple of main ones that make this card so valuable. The first being World of Hyatt Discover status, which is definitely valuable, but one that you probably would get just by staying at Hyatts frequently enough. Either way, a nice additional perk, but it also gives you a free night award at a category 1 through 4 hotel every year after your card member anniversary once again. Of course, there are more perks and benefits than that, but those are the main two. I think that this card is also kind of in a sweet spot where it's one that you could easily keep every single year if you just book at least a 1-night stay at a category 1 through 4 hotel every year with Hyatt. This is definitely a card that I plan to add at some point whenever my 524 status is just a little bit better than it is right now. But if you want to hear more about this card as well as the business version, which we'll be talking about later in this video, I just made a full video breaking both of those down in complete detail, so you could watch that video after this one if you're interested. Now we're getting into a couple of mid-tier hotel cards with hotels that we haven't covered yet, and the first one is going to be the IHG Premier card. The annual fee on this card is $99, and the welcome offer on it right now is for 140,000 IHG points after spending $3,000 in the first 3 months. The point valuation for IHG points, at least from the points guy, is going to be 0.5 cents per point once again, but with the right redemptions, this is definitely a low estimate, so keep that in mind. The earning categories on the Premier are going to be 10x back at IHG properties. That is technically up to 26x with your IHG membership and the status that comes with this card. 5x back on travel, dining, and gas stations, and 3x back on everything else. The additional perks on this card are pretty solid, starting with IHG Platinum Elite status, followed by a 40,000 point free night award with this card. When redeeming your IHG points for a stay, you get your 4th reward night free, and of course, much more. Honestly, this is one of the most benefit-packed mid-tier hotel cards that we're going to talk about today, but I think it's often overlooked because it is an IHG credit card, and those aren't necessarily the most popular hotels that people stay at. Personally, I could definitely see myself getting this card one day, especially if I'm planning out a trip where I know I could stay at some valuable IHG properties and I could use that welcome bonus for that stay. But I would say that this is one that you should strongly consider if you haven't yet, because IHG does have some very valuable properties. The last mid-tier hotel credit card we're talking about today is the Choice Privileges Select Mastercard. Yes, this is a card for Choice hotels, but once again, it definitely has its use case. The annual fee on this card is for $95, but that's actually waived in the first year, at least as of right now. The welcome offer on this card is for 90,000 points after spending $3,000 in the first 3 months. And the valuation of Choice points right now is 0.6 cents per point based on the points guys valuations. Definitely keep your eye out for better redemption rates than that, especially when you're traveling internationally. Its earning categories are going to cover 10x back at Choice hotels, which is technically up to 22x with the status that comes with this card and by having a Choice account, which again is very similar to all of the hotel cards we're talking about today. It also gives you 5x back on gas stations, grocery stores, home improvement stores, and phone plans, and 1x back on everything else. Additional perks with this card is that it does give you Platinum Elite status with Choice, 30,000 bonus points every single year just for renewing the card, a global entry or TSA pre-check credit, and more. This is a newer card on the market that hasn't gotten a ton of love from anybody except maybe my buddy Luke's Points and Miles once again. But for those international trips where your Choice points can be extremely valuable, again, I think this is a card that you should strongly consider. I may even do so myself one day. Honestly, I think it would be cool to have like a hotel credit card with every single hotel, not only for my channel, but just to see which one I like the most. So I may even get it for that goal alone. All right, let's go ahead and take a quick breather here before diving into part 3 of this video. This video is not sponsored by anybody, but this gives me a perfect opportunity to tell y'all about a new service that I'm offering where you can book a one-on-one call with me personally to discuss basically anything you want. Also, don't skip this part if you've already seen my temporary community post about about this offer. A lot has changed with it, and I think it's much better organized now. So at least go click the link in the description before writing this off in your mind. The main goal with this service is to give y'all personalized support on your credit card journeys from somebody who spends way too much time learning about credit cards. I mean, heck, this is my full-time job, so obviously I spend all of my days learning about credit cards. And right now there are 3 main services being offered that you can sign up for, and those are centered around either optimizing your current credit cards, strategizing what credit cards you should add next, or helping you maximize the value you get from your points whenever you go to redeem them. Those 3 specific services are going to give you 1.5 hours on the phone directly face-to-face with me, where we're going to be discussing all of your biggest needs. And then after the call, I'm going to be putting together a very personalized spreadsheet for you to use and reference in the future, even after we've had our call. There is one other type of call you can book if you click on the link down below, and that is going to be just a miscellaneous call. The intent behind this one is to give you a shorter amount of time to just discuss whatever you want. Maybe you don't want that full service, but you just want to talk about a few of the issues you're facing, or just have some questions about your roadmap or what cards you have and stuff like that. Or maybe you just want to do a follow-up call after you did one of those full services with me. That's exactly what this call is for. Of course, these services are not for everybody. I realize it's a bit of a high ticket item, but I just want y'all to know that it's there in case you do want to check it out. I also want to mention that if for whatever reason you booked a call and you feel like you did not get value from the service, I will give you a full refund right whenever you request it. So hopefully that makes it a little bit more frictionless for you. Through these services, I hope that we can save you thousands of dollars, either because you just had been leaving that money on the table with your cards in the first place, or because you just weren't exactly sure how to get that kind of value from your cards, even though that value is out there for you if you just know how to strategize and optimize your setup. This is exactly what I've done for my past clients, and I'm really excited to help do it for you too. Whether or not this offering is for you, I just sincerely appreciate your support in this new venture that I have, and I'm just stoked to continue to provide that free content for y'all. But this is just another one of those things that is out there, and I want y'all to know about it in case it does fit your needs. Now, about halfway through all the credit cards we're going to talk about here today, let's move into part 3, the no annual fee hotel cards. The first one here is going to be the Hilton Honors card. The welcome offer on this card right now is for 100,000 Hilton Honors points after spending $2,000 in the first 6 months. Once again, this is a limited time offer because of the recent changes that Hilton made to their personal cards. The point valuation is the same story as the last 2 Hilton cards, technically 0.5 cents per point, but I would aim for at least 0.8. The earning categories are going to be 7x back at Hilton, 5x at US restaurants, US supermarkets, and US gas stations, and 3x on everything else. The additional perks, as with every single no annual fee hotel card, are going to be a little bit lackluster compared to what we've talked about already, but the main one here is going to be Hilton Honors Silver status, along with some smaller benefits that we won't cover here. As for how I personally look at this card, it's one that I would consider applying for mainly for the welcome offer, but also to possibly ride on the Hilton carousel, as I call it, where you can basically get a bunch of upgrade offers on your Hilton cards, as well as get a ton of sign-up bonuses, at least one for each card. And in going through that process or that carousel, you could earn upwards of 1 million Hilton points just for applying for cards and then downgrading them after a year, getting more upgrade offers on them, and so on and so forth. I do worry that Amex is going to get rid of this, and they may even disallow you from getting the bonus on this card if you've had any of the higher tier Hilton cards, similar to what they've been doing with basically all of their credit cards lately. So it honestly may just be worth getting this card first just to get that sign-up bonus before going ahead and getting a card like the Hilton Aspire. Then again, Amex also has their 4 to 6 credit card limit, which you also have to keep in mind with this card. And I know it's complicated, but that is why I wanted to offer the service that I talked about earlier. The second no annual fee hotel card we're going to talk about today is the Marriott Bonvoy Bold. The welcome offer on this card right now is for 30,000 points after spending $1,000 in 3 months. The point valuation of Marriott points is going to be, again, about 0.8 cents per point. As for earning categories, you're going to get an additional 3x back at Marriott properties, technically up to 14x with the Marriott account that you have and having status with this card, 2x back on travel purchases, and 1x on everything else. The one main additional perk with having this card is that you will get Marriott Bonvoy Silver Elite status, but that's mostly it. For the majority of people, I would imagine that the only reason you'd have this card in your setup is because you downgraded from a higher tier Chase Marriott card, but I don't necessarily think it's one that I would recommend applying for fresh and using a 524 slot for. I'd probably go with the Marriott Boundless to get the best bang for your buck, and then if you didn't actually like that card for whatever reason, you could downgrade it to this one to keep that no annual fee account alive. IHG also has a no annual fee hotel card called the IHG Traveler, and the welcome offer on this card right now is for 80,000 points after spending $2,000 in 3 months. The point valuation valuation of IHG points is 0.5 cents per point, roughly. And the earning categories on this card are going to be for 5x back at IHG properties, which is technically up to 17x, again, with the status that comes with this card and for having an IHG account, 3x back at gas stations and dining, and 2x on everything else. Additional perks with this card are going to be Silver Elite status with IHG, a 4th reward night free, similar to the Premier, and more smaller things as well. I feel like I'm just repeating myself here, but once again, this is a no annual fee hotel card, so there's not a ton to love about it. But of course, I think it's a good downgrade option. I would just personally go for the Premier first. The last no annual fee hotel card on our list is the Choice Privileges Mastercard. The welcome offer on it right now is for 60,000 bonus points after spending $1,000 in 3 months. The point valuation, as mentioned previously, for Choice hotels is about 0.6 cents per point. As for earning categories, it's going to give you 5x back at Choice hotels, technically up to 16x with the Choice account and the status on this card, but 5x additionally, 3x on gas stations, grocery stores, home improvement stores, and phone plans, and 1x on everything else. The main additional perk with this card is that it gives you gold status with Choice, but of course there are some smaller benefits too. I think this card could be a decent way to test out the Choice program if you weren't really wanting to pay any kind of annual fee for a card. But remember that the step up from this card, of course, has a higher sign-up bonus and better perks and benefits, but also will waive your annual fee in the first year, at least right now. So I would probably just jump straight to that one, and if you wanted to downgrade, you could come back to this one if you needed to. Now we are on to part 4, which is going to be the business hotel cards. In the same vein as the last 3 sections, we got to start with a Hilton card. This one, of course, being the Hilton Honors business card. The annual fee on this card currently is $95, although I wouldn't be surprised if this changes, especially with the changes that they've made to all their personal cards recently. Its current welcome offer is for 130,000 points after spending $3,000 in 3 months. I think y'all got it by now, but hopefully you can remember it after this video. The point valuation for Hilton points are technically 0.5 cents per point, but I'd aim for at least 0.8. For earning categories, it's going to give you 12x back at Hilton properties, 6x on select business and travel purchases, including US gas stations, shipping providers, wireless phone services, US restaurants, flights, and car rentals. A lot of earning categories there, and 3x on everything else. There's really only one main additional perk with this card, and that's going to be Hilton Honors Gold status. But honestly, that's about it. I would still say though that this card could be a keeper card just for that gold status alone, considering one of the biggest perks of gold status is free breakfasts. So if you don't have any other Hilton credit cards, you will have that status with this card. And even by just saving money on breakfast for 1 trip a year could actually make back the annual fee on this card. So therefore it'd be worth it. This is actually a card that I really want to add right now, but they just haven't elevated the offer on it yet. And I just can't bear to apply for it without an elevated offer. And like I said before, I do assume that they're about to make changes to this card, so I'm kind of on standby waiting to see what happens there. Business hotel card number 2 is the Marriott Bonvoy business card. The annual fee on this one is slightly higher than the last at $125. The welcome offer is for 125,000 Marriott Bonvoy points after spending $8,000 in the first 6 months. This is a limited time offer though, and to ingrain it in your head, once again, the point valuation for Marriott points are 0.8 cents per point roughly. Earning categories wise, this card is going to give you 6x back at Marriott properties, technically up to 18x, but y'all know the drill there. 4x on select business and travel purchases, including dining worldwide, US gas stations, wireless telephone services, and US shipping purchases, and 2x on everything else. The additional perks on this card include Marriott Bonvoy Gold Elite status, which is the exact same as the Marriott Boundless card, as well as the Amex Platinum card and the Ritz Carlton technically, but it also will give you a 35,000 point free night award, very similar to the Boundless once again, and more. This is another one of those cards that should be a pretty easy keeper card if you use that annual free night every single year. However, I will mention that if you want to go for the Ritz Carlton card, I would definitely not apply for this one before getting the Marriott Boundless on the Chase side. Getting this one first will lock you out from getting a bonus on the Boundless card for 2 years, I believe. So in order to maximize your value, you'd want to go first for the Marriott Boundless, wait a year, product change that to the Ritz Carlton, and then a year after you get the Ritz Carlton, you could apply for this credit card to get the welcome bonus on it. Since Marriott is partnered with both Amex and Chase, that's just kind of what we have to do to make them work nicely together. Getting down to the final few here, next up we have the IHG Premier Business Card. The annual fee on this card is $99, and the welcome offer on it is for 140,000 IHG points after spending $3,000 in 3 months. IHG points are roughly valued at about 0.5 cents per point, and this card earns in the following categories: 10x back at IHG properties, technically up to 26x, but I'm not going to repeat myself. I've said how that happens too many times. 5x back on travel, dining, dining, select business purchases, and gas stations, and then 3x back on everything else. As for additional perks, this card's going to give you IHG Platinum Elite status, a 40,000 point free night award every account anniversary, that same 4th reward night free, and more. I would say that this is definitely a sleeper credit card, especially if you're somebody that likes getting business credit cards to help guard your Chase 524 status. It's basically the same as the personal version, but even better in some ways, and it doesn't add to your 524 account or impact your personal credit report at all, aside for the hard pull that Chase would do for you to get this card. So I could definitely see myself adding this one rather than the personal version, depending on which way I want to go. Or maybe I'll get both to stack 2 free nights. Who knows? Getting into the card that I mentioned earlier that I made a full video about along with the personal version, we have the World of Hyatt business card. The annual fee on this one is a more hefty $199, and the welcome offer on it right now is for 60,000 points after spending $5,000 in 3 months. Hyatt, having the highest point valuation out of any hotel out there, is going to be again 1.7 cents per point. And for the earning categories on this card, it's going to give you 4x back at Hyatt properties, technically 9x as a Hyatt member, but only an additional 4x with this card, 2x on fitness club and gym memberships, on top of your 3 highest eligible spend categories every quarter from this list on screen until December 31st of 2024, and then it just drops to your top 2 instead of 3 after that. And then you get 1x back on everything else. The additional perks on this card are going to include Hyatt Discoverer status, as well as the ability to gift that status to up to 5 employees, $100 in Hyatt statement credits, some status hunting benefits, and much more. Based on the full in-depth review I did in that separate video on this card, my main conclusion on it is that it's really only good for high spenders who are chasing status. The only other reason you might want to get this card if you're not falling into those categories is if you're somebody that just wants some Hyatt points and want to get this card for the welcome bonus, but I would say its main use case is for high spenders chasing status for sure. Last but not least, we have definitely one of the most overlooked credit cards in the game, but one that you might have heard of in a best gas credit card video at some point, that being the Wyndham Rewards Earner Business Card. The annual fee on this one is $95, and the welcome offer is for 45,000 Wyndham Rewards points after spending $3,000 in 3 months. The point valuation for Wyndham points is actually decently high at 1.1 cents per point, according to the points guy. So that's actually the second highest we're going to see, right under Hyatt. The earning categories are where this card really shines, that being 8x back on Wyndham properties and at gas stations, 5x on marketing, advertising, and utilities, and 1x on everything else. The additional perks on this card include Wyndham Rewards Diamond status, 15,000 bonus points every account anniversary year, and much more. Like I said previously, the main reason you've probably heard of this card is for that gas category because that is really high. And honestly, this may be a card that I consider to help guard my 524 status and even maybe replace my City Custom Cash as my dedicated gas card. But I do need to think more about that, especially because I don't really know how Barclays, treats people in their applications. Maybe I need to have no inquiries on my account before I apply for cards with them. I'm not really sure, but that might be a video y'all see in the future. If you want to learn more about some of the best general travel credit cards on the market that basically anybody can get value from and will be complemented very well by some of these hotel cards we talked about today, go ahead and watch this video next. I hope that this really long video taught you something that you didn't know before, and I really hope that you found it valuable, even if you just skipped along to the timestamps down below. As always, Odin and I both want to say thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, and we'll catch you guys next time.